So, auto layout. Okay. So, I'm going to start by creating the file. As you know, how we create new files, new design file, tap here. We'll also, let's see, so let's just make a frame first. Just going to make a frame. You can pick whatever you want. I would suggest pick something big. So, desktop. You'll have a frame, and then let's rename this auto layout. Okay, and let me demonstrate our layout really easily with some shapes here. Okay, so let's just draw a square. Let's make it fun. Let's make it like red or something, and then I'm gonna draw one more object here. Let's make them a bit smaller, like this. I'll make one more square. Let's make one more. As we know, so how to order them, let's see, so the distance between them is all kind of crazy right now. To order them, I would highlight all of them, and then I would go here on the top right, more options, and I would do distribute horizontal spacing, and then it would just snap them correctly into the size, and then it would be 64, the distance between them. So as we remember, you can change it to anything. Let's say I'm gonna make it 56. Okay, and then we can also group them, Command G, or just right click and group them, but we don't have to do that now. Actually, you can just leave them as they are. So auto layout, let's just put them into an auto layout. So you would just highlight all of them, and as you can see here, you have this tab called auto layout, and you can add an auto layout. Just press plus. Okay, it says auto layout added on the bottom. And one thing here, let's go back, Command Z, as you remember, to undo stuff. If I undo this, see we have this layer of all these rectangles. When we do auto layout them, you can see it turns into a frame. It turns into a frame, and then it adds an auto layout. So one thing to remember is that auto layouts can only be applied to frames. So let me just kind of do this step by step. So right click, frame selection. As you can see now, it's actually a frame. And if you add auto layout now, as you can see, the result is the same thing. So, and as we remember, the frame is this. It's literally it's created from here. So these are frames, right? An auto layout can only be applied to frames. So right now, this is a frame inside of a frame, and it has an auto layout feature. And so as you can see, auto layout has some properties here. And what are they? Well, first, this one is a horizontal direction. So what you can do with this is choose the direction. You can distribute them horizontally or vertically. So what happens when I tap this is they go into a vertical direction. But we don't need that right now, so let's go back. And it just behaves like a normal frame. You can drag it, do whatever you want with it. What is this? Well, this is the distance between the items. In this case, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items, and then the same thing that I did before, you can distribute them, let's say 32. The distance is going to be 32. What else? We have this property here. This is padding. So what this will do, basically, let's say I make it 20. As you can see, it added something here, right? Let me show that better. If you can look at the fill here on the bottom. And as you can see, there's this icon that says eye, like a shut eye, like the eye is shut. And that means it's hidden. So if we make it visible, it's white right now, so we don't see anything. But let's change the color of the fill. So this is the fill of this frame within a frame. So let me change it to, let's say, green. As you can see, this property here adds padding. So if I make it 60, the distance is just going to keep growing. The padding will grow. So the same thing. So the fill here acts the same way as any fill. So with auto layout, this gigantic frame that we have, you can also manipulate the fill here. So when I'm making the fill visible here and adding the color, it's literally the same thing. So let's see. Okay, so we know this is padding. Now what is this? This is alignment and padding. So From here you can do a more kind of a finer customization. So let's say it's actually a very easy panel here. You can see that right now it's kind of on the top left. If we move it to the center, see, you won't see actually anything change here. But let's say we make this 300. So here you can actually manipulate the padding on all the sides, right? So you can do top. So from here, see, it says mixed now because it's actually mixed. And if I say 60, it's gonna snap back all of them to 60. But you can also manipulate them. So let's say we make this 500, and we can actually see, let's just make this a bit bigger. We can see now this is, and actually, so let's just bring this back now because it's like weird looking. So with bigger screens, right now you can see I can actually manipulate the frame here and make this bigger. And as you can see, it's actually centered, right? No matter what I do, how much I make the size, and even up and down, it will always be centered, right? And this is because of this property here, right? Because I tapped on this thing in the middle. As you can see, if I tap on the left here, it's going to move to the left. If I tap on top left, it's going to move on top left, top middle, top right, etc. So this is what that does literally. Space between. So we have packed, which literally means they're all packed together. And then we have space between. Space between here just literally distributes them kind of equally, but just it moves them away from each other. So this is what that property is. And this just moves the whole thing around, as we said. This is basics of auto layout. It's as simple as that. Now, a more complicated way to do this, basically, let's say you want to nest stuff. Let's make something interesting, actually. Let's make, let me look at some of the stuff that I've done here. So, I might actually even rebuild some of this. Okay. So as you can see, there's a dashboard here, right? How do we make, so we can, let me just make this thing first in by using just normal Figma, and then we'll make this with or we can even do this, like this is so much easier, right? Like this the list thing here. Let me copy this. Don't worry, I'll just make this and you can kind of I'll just copy this. You'll see the reference here. Let me just make this bigger. Okay, so we got this list here. Now, this is actually in auto layout right now, but let's say we want to build this without auto layout, right? Like, how do we build this? Okay, so we have our frame here. Let's say inside of the frame we make a rectangle. So we have our rectangle here. Let's say we want to do this. We want to make it, let's say, let's make the background of this a bit of a kind of a subtle, let's go here. Okay, something grayish, basically. If you want the color code, it's F3, F3, F3. Let's make the corners rounded. We'll do like, let's see, 8. Yeah, that's fine. And let's just add a shadow. To add a shadow, you would go to Effects. You would tap on plus, drop shadow, and to manipulate the settings of the shadow, you would press on this. And this is just a drop shadow, so let's say we want Y to be 8. This is kind of a general drop shadow. So blur, make it 32. And then this would be 15 to make it subtle. And you can change the color even to something a bit more. If you make the gray kind of, see, when it's black, it's like very, it's very in your face, like it's not as smooth looking, like it's not as soft. So to make it softer, you just change it to a bit of a lighter gray, and something like this. So this would be that, and the color code is A89D9D if you want to use this color code, but it's just a lighter gray basically. And this opacity, this is literally opacity. So if you make it 60, as you can see, it gets darker. Obviously 100 will make it completely black. So 15 makes it soft and nice and easy on the eyes. So we have our diagram kind of base here, and then our table. What else? Which other elements do we have here? So we just have mainly text and some lines here, right? So let's add the text. Okay, let's say okay, and this is yeah, it's Inter. I use the font this Inter bold, but you can really use anything. Roboto is fine. And then the size of this, let's make this like 28. And then let's position this. So as we remember, press Option, hold Option, and you'll be able to see the distance here. So it's 71 from this side, 59 from this side, and let's just make it more aligned. So we say it's, let's say it's like 40 from here, and maybe actually 40. So 40, maybe a bit more from here. Let's say move this. So hold Shift to move it. If you want to move it quickly, hold Shift and drag it with your finger. You can move it in a straight line without worrying about kind of doing this thing. So let's say we want it to be, what, 60, 40, 60, okay, from both sides. Now we have our little options circles here, little 3 dots here. So to make that, it's also very simple. Go into our tool, we make ellipses. So you can zoom in as much as you want or not. You can resize them later. So let's make this, as you can see, this is actually 13, and when I made it, I was holding Shift, and that's why it's like a perfect circle. So when you're making this, holding Shift will always make this a perfect circle. So that's good to know. I let it go too soon. Ellipse. Oh. Okay. Now we have our, it's we can see its width is 91 and height is 91, and you can make it, let's say, let's just quickly see how much this is. Here it's 6, right, around 6. So let's make this 6. If I change width, as you can see, the height will change as well here, and this is because of the constraint proportions. When you turn this on, it will proportionally resize your object. So we have our little circle here. To make a copy, it's very simple. Hold Option and just move it. We got distance, so it's 2 away, and just do it one more time, and it's 2 away. This is super easy when you zoom in closer, obviously. So now we can, I think this looks fine. Let me see. I think the distance is actually a bit, yeah, it's like twice as much here. So yeah, the quick way obviously to do this would be to hold Shift, tap on one circle, tap on the other circle, and tap on the third circle. As you can see here, it'll highlight these circles here, this ellipses, and then you can do a Command G. It will group them, and where is this? Oh, I actually grouped the rectangle as well. So one more time, make sure, so that's why it's useful to look here. So just group them, Command G, we have them in a group. Horizontal spacing, it's 2, change it to 4, and it's like 4 away. Okay, so changing the color to, let's go black, and just hold Shift and move it to the side, right? And it has to be 40 away as well from this side. So 40 away, and now how would you, so as you can see, this Figma helps you to kind of align them properly with the title, because usually it would have to be aligned centrally on the title. So the way to do this really easily is to just, so we pick this, we tap on the 3 dots, then we hold Shift, and we tap on the title as well. Make sure that you tap on the title and not on the rectangle. And you know by Figma highlighting this. So as you can see, when you highlight it, it will show that they're both selected. And you would just go here and do align vertical centers. See, so what that did, again, let me show you closely. Watch this, it just moves this, just aligns them naturally. So now it's 60, as you can see, it's 60, 40, 40. Both elements are aligned. And then we have our list of items here. So they're kind of this, they're different, but we'll just make them the same for the example. So I'll type in here, let's say 05:03 p.m. So we have one of them. Now hold Option, make the second one. So just copy and then type in this. Okay, and then the last one. There we go. So we have our texts here, and then obviously these are all in regular. It's pop-ins regular. We'll make it inter regular. So make sure to highlight all of them. So the same thing, hold Shift, tap one by one. When they're all selected, you can do regular. They will all change to regular. And then let's change the size, 22. If I'm going too fast, let me know. I'll slow down. Okay, so here, let's just align them together now. You can do it this way. It's fairly simple. Figma helps you to do this as well. As you can see, holding this helps you to align them perfectly. Now it's 52, 52, 52. And we can highlight them all. Command G, they're grouped. And just to make sure we can do this is okay, so this does it that way. But I think they're aligned. Let me see. Yeah, they're fine. So let's make a few copies of these now. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And we have them, and there's a line here. So the line is fairly simple. Separator line. We can just pick the line tool from here. Hold Shift, tap, drag. It will make a perfect 0-degree line, and just let go. And then obviously when you want to manipulate the size of this, as you can see, it's going to go crazy. You have to hold Shift always. So Shift, boom, Figma helps you to align it perfectly as well, again, and just make copies of this. So just drag it down, down, down. Okay, fairly simple. Now let's see, the distance here between these is 27, so we can manipulate this at 24. Okay, and we can actually make this a group as well. So select the line and the thing, Command G, and then now actually, so the quick way to do this is to actually get rid of these, and then just make more copies of this thing, and it'll be way faster. All right, boom, there you go. I did this obviously because all of the text here is the same. Otherwise, you know, if it's different, you have to edit them one by one again. But because we're using the same thing for all the rows, it's fine. So now we have this, and then let's see what the distance is. 24, 30. So the distance here is 30. We want to make sure it's 24. So 24. Actually, probably you can just make it this way, horizontal, distribute vertical spacing, and then let's just make it 24. So now it's 24, all of them. So this one, this group here, 24, and the distance from this line is also 24. Now obviously this is one of the ways to do it. You could group them however you want. That's the great thing about Figma. You can really create your own way of doing this. This is just the way I did it. And obviously moving this 3 dots, you need to move them here. Make sure they're aligned. again, hold shift when you do it. And let's just move this as well. Let's say it's 40, 63, 46, plus 4. So to the widths, I would just add plus 4 here to avoid the hassle, and then it'll do that. So this is 40 as well. So with these ones, actually completely messed up here. So just move them here. So it's 40 and then 56. So just yeah, just move the lines here basically. So select the line. So the easy way to select this line would be to come to the group and then pick the line here, and you can see I've selected the line, and then you can actually select all the lines that way. So we have all the groups here, all our groups. Got all our groups here. So line, you got this line selected, hold shift, you can select, oh no, I think it selects all of it, so I think we'll just have to go one by one here. This line here, zoom in, this line here, zoom in, and you can see it's 56. So now when I move them, obviously because I just selected the lines, you can see only the lines move. And Figma helps you to do this as well. It will tell you automatically when it aligns with the 3 dots here. It makes them red right here. So, okay, we got our lines. Looks normal. Now, obviously, when I want to make a little small change here, this is where auto layout really comes into play, because let's say I want to make a little small change here, right? Let's say I want to move something. Let's say I want to make the distance from this to this, I want to change it to 20, okay? Well, what would I do? I would do, and let's say they're all different from each other, right? Let's say like here it's like something else, here it's like something else. The entries are like different, right? And I can't delete and copy paste them. Let's say I'm going to change this line here. Let's say we want to change the table so that's 20 away, right? 20 from here, and then I would have to do that manually. I would have to come here, I would have to do 20 again, okay, 20 here, right? I would have to, and then I would have to order them again, so I would have to like pick these one by one and then go here, do vertical spacing, 20, okay, now it's 20, right? And still not done, right? We've got 2-3 more entries. And also we have another issue is that we have to manually change the size of this to match the actual entry, right? Like it's so much work, right? It's like an artwork, but it's not an artwork, it's just a table, right? So the way to do this very quickly, we can use auto layout, right? With auto layout, if I delete this entry, let's say, see, it just snaps to the, oh, sorry, just snaps always. So it knows exactly how big it needs to be and what the margins and the padding is. But let's build this in auto layout, and I'll show you how it works basically. So the same thing we can build in auto layout. Let's make a copy of this, move this away from here, right? No auto layout. Okay, now auto layout. Okay. So, how to make this into an auto layout? It's very simple. First of all, you don't even need this rectangle, okay? It's gonna take a bit of time if you're gonna do this. It's gonna take some time to get used to this. It's a bit counterintuitive, but you don't actually need this layer. Like, you can get rid of it. Here's what you do need. So you have your main title here, right? And you have this, the 3 dots here. So I would just select both of them, right? And that's our first auto layout object here. So, or layer, you would call it a layer in Figma. So let's do the thing. Auto layout, let's add it, plus, okay, it's an auto layout now. One thing happened to it, you can see the dots moved on top here. And And if you look at the property here, we got auto layout, we have space between items, 422, and obviously what that means is that the distance between these two objects, like the squares that we had before, and you can move them, as you can see, around however you want. And then obviously you see it's like top corner here, and that's why this happens to it. If you align all the objects centrally, it's going to drop down and it's going to be centrally aligned. So that's super easy. You can it's already worth it. You can manipulate this so much easier using this rather than like tapping twice and then dragging this. One thing also is that you can't actually drag this. There's no way to see. Auto layout actually doesn't allow you to do the both. So when you have auto layout, you can't actually drag object. What you can do is you can change their position. So you can drag this and you will have the title here and the dots there, but that's about it. It just makes it like puzzle pieces basically that just snap into the grid. And for tables, it's very useful. So we have our first auto layout here. Let's make the second one here. So let's just delete this, get rid of this. So we have our entry here, the distance, we got 24. Now this thing, so with auto layout, you need to start thinking in auto layout terms, okay? So when I think in auto layout terms, let's try and make this into an auto layout, right? Like let's add auto layout here. So now this is actually the reason why, so this worked, right? And you can do a horizontal and it's gonna go, obviously it's gonna move this horizontally. We don't want that, right? We want it vertical so that it's like two elements are positioned above and below each other. And obviously the reason why this happens is because this is in a group. These three are in a group. And you can actually make these into an auto layout as well. Why? Well, if you want to manipulate the actual, let's say I'm going to change this to like, I don't know, right? This is what happens if I increase the size. And then what you have to do is you have to do this, or you have to drag. I mean, it's a headache. It's not even possible to do this here. All right, so if you're using auto layout, you just use it for all the elements inside it. So let's actually ungroup this. Ungrouping, by the way, removes the auto layout, so that's how you remove it. And ungroup these as well, actually. Just ungroup them. Now we have these three entries here, 52 away from each other. Select them all, three of them, and add auto layout. Okay, so these are in an auto layout now. Now this means that when I'm entering whatever there is here, as you can see, no matter how long it is, the distance is always going to be the same. So it's
auto layout then it's automatically a new group?
When I auto layout them, it's automatically a new frame, not a group frame, right? So so that means actually you can see it here. If I drag it out, see it says frame 11. So it acts as a frame. But inside you can't see it, obviously, right? Inside of another frame. So, and the distance is 52, and that means you can manipulate the distance from here very easily. That's convenient. And separate entries, they also act responsively, basically. So now we have this as auto layout. Then we have our line on the bottom. And hold shift, select this line, and then the three entries here, the three columns, and we can make this into an auto layout now. So it's going to be an auto layout inside of another auto layout, basically. And then you can see it's distributed vertically, horizontally, of course, it's going to be here. Command Z, go back. 24, you can manipulate from here easily the actual the distance, right? And then if you make this, make a copy of this, option, right, it's going to be 32 away. Let's say we have three entries here, right? And there are many ways you can go about this, but let's say we have our entries here. We have our auto layout here, right? Now, obviously, what you can do here is, and what you should do, is make another auto layout out of these. So you select all of them. Wait, is this? Yeah, it's like separate. Yeah, so if you add auto layout now, Yeah, let me see. Frame. Let's try to frame them first, actually. Frame. See? Frame. Add auto layout. Boom. Yeah, okay. So sometimes, sometimes here you see like auto layout. There is an auto layout. It's confusing, but just press plus here, and it will add another auto layout here. So now we have these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 entries in an auto layout.
Do you need to frame it first?
When you press this plus, it frames it automatically, but if you want to be more precise, you can frame it first and then do that if you want to see the process, basically. But literally this plus here does that. It just frames them first and then does the auto layout. I just did it to test it, and then it's fine. So frame, so we have a frame, then we have all of these smaller things inside, and then we have the 3 entries here. So I used auto layout here when I needed to. It wasn't like as you can see, when you're layering stuff with auto layout, you need, most of the time you need auto layout for every element here. So now we can see 38, and this is the distance between each row. So 56, you can see the row increases, right? So we can make it as small as, let's say we want to make it this big, right? Now, and the final auto layout, of course, is going to be what? It's going to be this, the title with the 3 dots and the entries, right? So we frame this, or you can just plus auto layout here. That does it. You got auto layout. So now this one is 77, and this is the distance between the title and the entries, right? So we got our this here. So 24, we can make it, okay, that's too small. 40. No, let's do 72. Okay, that's better. Okay, so now this is why you don't need the actual layer, the white, the base, right? Because you can do this. You can do fill. You see, there's no fill. If you do plus fill, it fills it, right? So now it's white, right? And to make the sides, see, this is amazing, right? Like, you're gonna have sides here, and then you could just add padding. So let's say, you remember our padding? It was 40 on the sides, right, and 60 on top, right? 40. Right now it's all 40, and then if we come here, we can change the top ones, so it's 60. So now it's 60 on the bottom, 40 on the sides, and you can change them however much you want, and it will all be very dynamic. So I'm actually curious, what will this do? See what it does? It's increasing. So all of this is now dynamic. So that's really the benefit of auto layout. It just makes the whole design process more flexible when you're working with stuff like this, when you're working with cards as well. So this, let me see if I did this in, yeah, I did this in auto layout as well.
For one question, if I like change text and I want that like the columns stay right to
Let me see.
each other, should I change the content?
So when you change text, you mean like you...
When you need text for example?
Can you show me?
Then it's like, hey, this doesn't look good because I want like the columns always in the same direction.
Yeah, well, so you reduce the size, that's why it's snapped in this. Yeah. I think what you need to do for that is you can try making like auto layout of these,
Yeah.
and then you can manipulate the distance. That's actually better for this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just, you're just playing around with it, really. Like, you can play however you want with it. Because otherwise, like, when you're designing stuff, like things like this, when you need to add, like, the more elements you have on the page, like, let's say here, like, we have all of these elements here on the page. So I have all of these elements here on the page. Let's say I want to add something here, right? Like this is what's gonna happen. It's gonna go out of the frame. It's gonna be annoying. Let's see. No, it's not allowing it. But what auto layout will let you do is basically just make your job easier, and you can make changes faster. That's really what it is. Yeah, I can use auto layout. Yeah, just for stuff like this even. I think I removed auto layout here. No, I didn't. Yeah, so you can just like manipulate the distance between stuff, their place. So with auto layout again, you can just say bring this on top, right? I want to see how this whole thing will look like with the thing on top, right? You could do that.
Is that project you're working on right now?
Yes, yeah. And for cards as well, you can really do it for anything. Yeah, and also you can combine them with actual components as well. So you can make this into a component if you want to. And then, let's say, so we make a component out of this. This is the main component. And then we have the child component here. So any changes we make to this file will reflect on this one here. So that's that. And any questions? That's pretty much it.
What's the difference with, because like the first lesson you did the components?
What's the difference between them?
Or is it the same? Like,
No, so components allow reusability. So
you just added a component, right?
yeah. I mean, I just deleted it basically, but so yeah, component. When you make something into a component, what it does is basically, so this is a master. It becomes a master component, and then you have child component here. If you make a copy of this, it's gonna become a child component, right? And then components are literally like, they just, any changes you make to the parent one will reflect on the child. So again, it just makes things faster if you have, let's say, 15 different graphs and you don't want to edit them one by one. Having one master, editing that, but it's usually very basic bones as a component. So components are not very specific usually. They are something like the basics. And then editing them, like buttons. Let's say a button, a primary button, it will be like a main component, and then a submit button will be a child. So editing the primary component will reflect on the child. Let's say we rebrand, we want to change our color from blue to green. Changing the main component will change all the primary buttons to green, right? So that's how components are used basically. Oh, and plugins. Yeah. So plugins, let me quickly go over how to access plugins. So when you go to home, right, you have your name here, right? And then you can go into community. Now in the community tab, you have lots of things here, right? Very overwhelming. But basically there are two things that you're going to use: files and plugins. Let's say I want to search, I don't know, UI kits, right? UI kits. Now this is not a plugin. You can see you have like actually one plugin, Tidy Components. I don't know what it does, but you can check it out. I mean, it's very easy. Just install it. Yeah, and once it's installed, you can go to your plugins. So go to your file, plugins, and you can see all of your plugins here. It's that simple. And then if you want to uninstall it, you just tap it again and it's uninstalled. What plugins do really is just, again, makes your life easier. So let's say here, instead of this text, let's say I don't have a text. Let's say I want some random, let's say I don't have this copy. I have this lorem ipsum plugin that I can tap, and let's see, it takes a bit of time. Let's see. Let me show you. Okay, there we go. So let's say generate 10 sentences, and it will generate them here, right? It's like too much, but basically, there you go. There you go. So it just, again, speeds up the things, and there are plugins for almost anything here. Let's see, where was this? So the home tab, yeah, so there are plugins for almost anything here. There are files as well. Files are super useful, so I just entered UI kits, and let's say let's just explore. Okay. This one, what is this? Mini Programs UI Kit. So duplicate. So when you duplicate, it just drops it in your folders, like in your main files. And then, okay, someone made bunch of components here for like mobile tabs, mobile like headers. They have some screens here that you can put stuff in. So it's just stuff like this, really, the files. You can really think of, I mean, there's almost anything. The community is amazing for Figma because they make a lot of things. So even just exploring the community page here. So there are design systems here, anything, like even data visualization, like if you want like, I don't know, graphs, they got a bunch of files with graphs, like this one here, right? You can access them, explore them, see the way people build stuff, reuse them. It's all just made for people to reuse, really, just all community based. So if you need a graph, if you need to show a fancy graph with some gradients like this one, you can do that. Yeah, those are plugins, so you can, and files, so just explore them, use them. Yeah. Any questions? No, then we're done.
Nice. Thanks.
Thank you.
No worries.